Bringing horrific characters to the screen is what Evan Peters is an expert in, and leaving American Horror Story, where the actor has featured in many scary roles, is still surprising, but Evan has his reasons. To understand the roles that Evan Peters played while acting in AHS is also to understand Evan himself, and they are opposite of each other. Evan said he's usually a happy guy who enjoys being goofy, but his roles in AHS are severe and dark, the type that requires extreme efforts. And because Evan could play every weird and dangerous character in the earlier seasons of AHS, he quickly became a fan favourite that they always look forward to seeing. But according to Evan, he just had to step away from it all because he hated what his roles on American Horror Story demanded, and what they ended up turning him into. He said, "I don't like to yell and scream. I wouldn't say I like it. I think it's disgusting and awful, and it's been a challenge for me. Horror Story demanded that of me." And even though Evan has been able to meet these demands, he claims that it hurts his authentic self by negatively affecting his mental health. He mentioned that so much gets demanded from him, like having him produce a tremendous amount of rage from nowhere, and it's been draining after all these years of playing these characters. In his words, these characters don't leave him entirely. They sometimes try to reflect on who he is, and he would sometimes find himself screaming at someone in traffic. And to get out of that, he always needed to remind himself to separate from his characters. The dark side of American Horror Story is more like the primary reason Evan stepped away, but that's only a part of it. Evan doesn't also like the intimate scenes he got involved with in the show, and obviously he's had enough of that too. Evan hated the constant need to strip, tease, and get down on AHS because it affected him mentally and even more so emotionally. The actor talked about how he feels about scenes like that, and he also mentioned how he had mistakenly exposed himself to a colleague, Jessica Lange, on the set of AHS when he said, "They're very embarrassing, especially when you're in your 20s and you're still awkward. Your private parts are hanging out in front of Jessica Lange, and it's like, this is not normal because it is a very vulnerable experience." You can see why Evan doesn't like the intimate scenes in AHS, because most of the time they go overboard, and it's not like in any other regular films. Sometimes it just becomes dangerous and harmful to the parties involved, and it's understandable why Evan doesn't want to be a part of that any longer. He added that the only thing closer to intimacy he wants to be a part of is a romantic comedy. He wants to have fun on set and not have to involve the deepest parts of his consciousness in it. And well, since Evan in real life is goofy and funny, he wouldn't have any issue playing a role that's similar to how he is. After all, he's been able to turn every part given to him by Ryan Murphy into a masterpiece, so it's hard to think there's nothing that he can't pull off. Many famous actors are always very worried about one strong and severe point of their career, and that's becoming typecast. And Evan's continuous feature on AHS is already looking like he's becoming typecast, as he's now known for horror and weird roles. Maybe, at first, he didn't have issues with it, but it's becoming so regular that he needs to stay away from American Horror Story and try other genres, probably like the romantic comedy he wishes to feature in. The actor said, "It's not that I'm pigeonholed as any one character, but all the darker stuff gets more thrown at you. In a way, I have to prove that I'm not this crazy guy." So yeah, many fans already know him for playing these dark roles, especially with his recent work on the Jeffrey Dahmer story. But it appears that Evan's fears of being typecast will last a while, because since he has left American Horror Story, he's only gotten to feature in even darker roles. His fears of being typecast are real, and if leaving American Horror Story will help reduce that and the mental effects he's been exposed to, then it's a perfect escape plan. Acting looks fun when the viewers see it on the screen, but don't forget many hours of effort and reshooting goes into every scene. Now, imagine going for that dark role that Evan doesn't like in the first place. It can be tiring, and that's one of the reasons Evan left AHS. He was constantly struggling with feeling burnt out, and he felt like he might lose himself in public if he didn't bow out of the show. Ever since American Horror Story started, it was something that Evan was always glad to be back into, but he said that in 2018 he began to feel the pressure. And it didn't stop there. The pressure he was starting to feel was becoming noticed by the press and fans, as his frustrations were difficult to hide while in interviews. He said, "I think it was full-on burnout. I'm gonna take a break, regroup, decompress, get back in touch with what I feel like I want to do." When Evan said that, what he meant was to stay away from American Horror Story and take a breathing break where he could be able to come back better. American Horror Story's crew creator Ryan also understood the need for Evan to take that break. Ryan said after filming American Horror Story Cult, he could tell that Evan was still feeling the darkness of that season. And to make things even better, Ryan suggested that they do some light comedy and leave him out of AHS. Ryan revealed how long it took Evan to recover from that season when he said he suffered while making it. It took him, 2 years to recover. There's this thing actors can barely manage, and that's the amount of time they spend with family and friends due to their busy schedules. Yes, acting in Hollywood is a dream job, and the actors are lucky to be in such a position. But it isn't usually like that. It comes with enormous sacrifices, and Evan knows something about that. From the tender age of 15, Evan had left his family back in St. Louis, Missouri, and moved to Los Angeles to kickstart his now famous career. And since he started filming AHS, his social life and family time have declined rapidly. While explaining to Deadline, Evan said, "We're shooting insane hours. I'm learning lines when I have a few hours not working, and it's absolute madness. I lost touch with a lot of my family and friends. I could hardly do it." Although he was glad to be getting the most out of his career and dreams, he knew he needed a work-life balance in his life, and that was one of the reasons he took a break from American Horror Story. It still seems like a coincidence that Evan Peters left AHS about the same time he broke up with his co-star and long-term girlfriend Emma Roberts. But that could have been it. The on-off relationship between Evan and Emma had maintained a rocky path as they featured in AHS together. Their back and forth finally ended in early 2019, and at the time, Emma was going to be a part of the 9th season of the show they are on together, but Peters was left out. Right from the earlier seasons of American Horror Story that the ex-lovers featured in together, they've been able to maintain a professional stand while filming on set. But somehow, the final breakup between them was too awkward, which made Evan stay back instead of joining the show with Emma. And because Evan was having a hard time mentally with his dark roles, it would be an even more complicated task to be faced with his ex on the set. So he needed to protect himself from triggering situations and emotions, especially when he was that vulnerable. After spending so many years of his career at American Horror Story, the actor took on roles that kept him from continuing with AHS. When he left American Horror Story in season 9, he just rounded up for shooting for the film Dark Phoenix. But to get enough time with the press and promotional events, he needed to sit out AHS. It would have been possible for Evan to be in AHS and still have time to go for his Dark Phoenix press rounds. Still, it's been a long time since he devoted his time to another film aside from AHS, and taking full responsibility for that just felt exactly like what he needed. Another reason Evan bowed out of AHS was to feature in Pose Season 2. The role he played in this series is different from what he usually does, and it was just like taking a break from the characters he's used to playing. Though it appears to be a bit out of his creative zone, the actor was happy to be part of something new that focused on the LGBT community in New York in the 80s. The actor mentioned what he learned and enjoyed on the set when he said, "This is a whole world and culture that I knew nothing about. I've learned a lot from the trans community. They're an incredibly strong community, and they've had to deal with way bigger problems than anything I've ever had to deal with." Going outside dark themes to a liberating one was a deal maker for Evan, and he just couldn't pass on it. Do you find the reasons Evan left AHS fascinating enough? Share your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for watching.